Second. So to that knowledge, to that point, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge that this land that we have the privilege of farming on was originally stewarded by the Ute peoples, and often unrecognized indigenous knowledge is the foundation of our regenerative agriculture practices. We've had lots of opportunities to share our practices with the community through farm tours and dinners and events. But tonight, we wanted to take a moment to dive a little deeper into the farmer and the person of becoming a farmer and being a farmer. So we're joined tonight by 3 first-year farmers. We're also joined tonight by 3 farmers who are pursuing, not only pursuing, but have made agriculture their careers. We're excited to share our perspectives, but we also want to acknowledge that we are not representative of the entire farming community. We share some farming challenges along with our peers, but this group recognizes that the privilege and opportunity that we have been presented with is hugely enormous. We're so lucky to have that privilege and opportunity. There is a huge injustice and inequity in farming that we don't personally experience. So these are our perspectives. There will be an opportunity at the end of the discussion for additional questions. We've put down note cards on the table, and if you want to jot down notes or have questions, we'll be able to take a few of those at the end of the evening. I'd like to welcome the 2020 Rock Bottom Ranch crew members to the stage. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being part of this team this year. We've had such a great year. It's been a crazy, kind of unprecedented year, but I feel really lucky that we've had such an incredible team. Would you please tell us your name, your position at Rock Bottom Ranch, and how long you've been farming?
Hi everyone, my name is Kathleen Voigt. I'm a vegetable crew member here. I came to farming through an interest in land management. I saw ways in which grazing and large-scale agriculture really shaped and have continued to shape the landscapes of America. And I was really interested in learning how agriculture can be, instead of kind of a necessary evil, but really a force for good. And this is my first season farming full-time.
Hello, my name's Dara Unger. I just graduated from the University of Florida, and I studied sustainability studies and business. And through my coursework, I had an internship on my campus farm. So I started farming this year in January, and that has led me to the valley here, where I wanted to continue my interest in farming.
Hi everyone, my name is Maddie. I'm the livestock and site crew member here at Rock Bottom Ranch. This is my first season farming, and I really became interested in farming. I have a background in wildlife biology and was really interested in the connections between what I was studying in wildlife research and the ways that we steward and manage our land. And I really found the perfect place to delve into that in regenerative agriculture.
What were some of the expectations about farming that you had prior to starting this farming season? Kathleen?
I think I anticipated farming being really hard, which it has been. It's been, I think, mentally and physically and emotionally really challenging, and it has sort of continued to present new challenges throughout the course of the season. I think I also really came into farming, like most people, with kind of a romanticized idea of agriculture. It sounded great to be in a beautiful place and be outside every day and to work with a great group of women. And I think slowly over time I've come to really experience the day-to-day realities, a much more sort of gritty and challenging experience than I thought it would be. Sometimes you spend afternoons digging rocks out of the ground. It's a much more complex process.
I totally agree, Kathleen. I came into it thinking farming would be incredibly challenging. When I would work on my campus farm, I would farm maybe for 4 hours a day, like 2 days a week, and I would come back, eat a ton of lunch exhausted. And so I was like, oh my God, how am I gonna do farming from 7:30 to 5 p.m., sometimes later, many times later. And I also, like, not the strongest person, and I was home during quarantine, not working out. I was like, will I be able to physically do this? Spoiler alert, I can. I've become a lot stronger this past season, for sure.
Well said. I echo a lot of those sentiments as well. It's something that comes to mind for me is I finished my undergraduate career feeling really disillusioned with a lot of the kind of hard laboratory science I was working with. It seemed really kind of existential, not as hands-on as I expected, and I was really missing the point. And so one expectation I had for this season is to delve into work that was much more hands-on, much more tangible in the day-to-day, and that was something I was really looking forward to in being a farmer. And I would go so far to say that that's something I've really found here at Rock Bottom Ranch. Going a little bit into what actually happened, I finish every day feeling more satisfied than I ever have in a previous job opportunity. I leave this place each day knowing that things are happy and healthy because of the work I've put into it, and that feels incredibly rewarding and has really blown out of the water all of my expectations.
Were there any realities to farming that you didn't expect that once you got into it, you kind of discovered?
I think I've been surprised at how really dynamic and intellectually engaging farming has been. That's not just sort of manual physical labor, but that we're continuing to learn things each day, especially as the season progresses and weather's changing and the different types of tasks we're working on changes. It seems like as soon as we're mastering one skill or getting good at using one piece of equipment, the moment passes and we're on to the next step. So every day it feels like something exciting is happening, and there are always these sort of continual learning opportunities.
Another great reality I found here was just the sense of community. I love when we get to work together on big tasks together, whether we're all like pulling out the potatoes of the ground at the same time or staying late for these really, really fun events. Everyone has been such a great person to spend time with and get to know, and everyone has different perspectives I've loved learning from.
Were there any expectations that were not exactly what you imagined of, did you imagine the work to be as demanding as it was, hours, did you have any interactions with people or markets that you or community that you didn't expect? Was the work as hard, as easy, or exactly as you expected?
I think I do feel that farming is physically and mentally demanding, but I recall a conversation with a friend who's not a farmer, and we are often hiking buddies, and we go out on a lot of excursions together, and she said before I started this job, you're gonna be way too tired to do any of these big hikes on the weekends, and I definitely don't feel that way at all. I'm tired during the work week, but I find farming really energizing, and it's definitely made me stronger, so I have done a lot of hikes this summer in addition to farming.
I think I've also been surprised at how farming has really impacted all kinds of aspects of my life. It's something that I think about now in my personal choices, in the decisions I make on the day-to-day, the types of things I choose to consume. So it really has sort of expanded far beyond just being a sort of 9-to-5 job or a 7:30 to 5 job.
How do you think farming is going to influence your future?
I think I've definitely grown to become a much more resilient person. My favorite days are when we have really, really challenging tasks. And at the beginning we're not thinking we're gonna get through it. And then by the end you come out, you level up as a farmer, and you feel that much stronger. So with this newfound resilience, whatever path I take, I'm going to welcome challenges much more openly and be more excited for them.
I think it's also really impacted the kind of work I hope to be doing in the future. I sort of imagined farming as a quick stop, a good learning experience to then continue on in a career, moving in a different trajectory. And now it's something that I think about pursuing as a really sustainable career for a much longer period of time.
I think farming has really impacted me in many ways, but one small takeaway that I think about constantly, I grew up with a household who was really conscious about eating and looking to eat organic and all these different sort of health conscious things, but I am incredibly more aware of the food choices that I make now after being part of that production and seeing this side of things. I strive to continue to have a relationship with my farmer wherever I may move in the course of my life. I want to know who's growing my food and support them and enjoy that relationship that I've been privileged to be on the other side of here.
I think we've also all been learning that all of these issues are so much more complex than we had initially thought, that the decisions you make around food and diet and whether or not you're eating meat or where your meat's coming from are always sort of much more complicated questions, and there are no sort of black and white solutions.
So if we go back to kind of the beginning of the season, did you expect to farm another season, or was this kind of one time? Did you intend for it to be a one-season experience?
I think at the beginning I was like, all right, I'll move to Aspen, I'll work on a farm, and then eventually I'll learn as much as I can, eventually go to grad school. That's probably still on the horizon for me, but I definitely want to farm next summer.
I feel really similarly. I also came in planning to just be farming for a brief moment of my life. But I think I found the amazing thing about farming. I say this to Dara all the time as we're working together, that farming always feels like a metaphor. Like we're farming and working on these different tasks and going through these different challenges, but it always feels like we're learning about sort of much bigger ideas and asking much bigger questions. So it feels like a lifelong journey in some ways.
I really came into this season, I don't think with a definitive idea over whether I wanted this to be long-term or just a one-season stop on the road. But to echo Dara and Kathleen, after this season at Rock Bottom Ranch, I am very certain that I would like to continue farming. So hopefully next summer I will be farming in some capacity. And I think for me, it's, as I mentioned to you earlier, just this really tangible way to bring together all of my interests. And after just one season, I am completely hooked.
I also think there's a lot of wins and losses that you experience in the summer, and you're like, next summer, we're gonna get it right. So whatever that is, the challenge.
That becomes the addiction, and it's a lifelong, always another season. So good luck with that.
Thanks.
Team, I really want to thank you for taking a few moments to share. I want to deeply thank you for being with us this season and being a part of the team this season. I want to thank you for inspiring me every day. So I really appreciate everything that you've done, and I feel so lucky and grateful to be a part and work alongside this crew.
Thanks, Jason.
Mark's going to help us clean these microphones really quickly, and then we are going to introduce and welcome the Rock Bottom Ranch 2020 crew leads. I guess you've been here for multiple years. We'll touch on that. Here tonight and spending time tonight. Thank you for multiple years of working at Rock Bottom Ranch and helping progress ACEs to new levels for the last couple of years. Could you please tell us your name, your position, and how long you've been farming?
My name is Alyssa Barsanti, and I am the agriculture manager. And I have been farming for 6 years, and I've been at Rock Bottom Ranch for 5.5 years.
My name is Jennifer Gigerelli. I am the livestock and site lead at Rock Bottom Ranch. I am just wrapping up my 8th season of full-time farming. I don't know how. And I have had the privilege of being at Rock Bottom Ranch for the past 2 seasons.
My name is Mariah Foley. I am the vegetable lead here, and I've been here for 2 seasons and finishing up my 5th year of full-time farming, and the 3 years prior to that, I was working in agriculture in some capacity.
Did you all expect to become farmers? Was that part of the plan?
Not at all. I was deeply terrified of animals, like bunnies and kittens, until I was like 6 years old or older.
Yeah, absolutely not. I don't feel like I grew up with like that professional capacity to be like a realistic, like you don't grow up to be a farmer. And I think like anybody I went to high school with is like, Jen's doing what? But I'm happy I found it. It was totally by accident, but it's been the greatest passion of my life. And in retrospect, it makes a lot of sense. Like as a kid, I wanted to be a veterinarian, and I got really into environmental science in high school, and I actually got my undergrad in college in nutrition. And so it really is kind of like this combination of all of my life's greatest passions.
I think in hindsight, looking back, the thread of being interested in like food and agriculture and sustainability kind of started in early adolescence for me. But it was, even though I kind of went into college with an idea that I wanted to be somehow involved with agriculture, it kind of took a few years for me to actually feel confident being like, oh, I want to be on the production side of things. And so I think the thread is there in hindsight, but I think hopefully my 18-year-old self would be proud I'm still with it.
And Alyssa, what was kind of your path? How did you discover agriculture?
Well, similar to Jen, I studied nutrition in undergrad, and I wanted to be a dietitian. But towards the end of my college time, I started to become more interested in how food was actually being grown versus just how your body metabolized it. And so that kind of led my curiosity. And then, I was just exploring different things with food and ended up just coming to visit Rock Bottom Ranch. And then here I am.
And I'm just curious what some of your other introductions to farming were. Did you just take a job as a farmer, or did you learn from going to a farm or CSA, or what were your introductions to farming?
So when I entered college and kind of got looped in with like the campus farming scene and did a lot of kind of food and farm adjacent work with some smaller stints on like kind of shorter term stints on some farms fitting in with my education. And then I actually made a decision my senior year of college to switch my schedule around, drop a major, and graduate a little early so I could jump right into a full season of farming. And so I, like a week after turning in my last final, got in my car and drove across the country for a farm apprenticeship program and have been full-time ever since.
Yeah, I think similar, Maddie made a comment that she felt some level of disillusionment with the current systems that she was involved in, and I kind of felt that as well exiting undergrad. I felt like maybe the nutrition I learned treated a lot of symptoms and not causes and wasn't as holistic as I wanted, and totally by chance, I started kind of just volunteering on a small-scale organic vegetable production post-college and just met people that really incredibly inspired me. And so I kind of literally got like into the ground from there. And then just so happened to buy I looked up literally every farmer's market in my area, and I emailed every single vendor on every single farmer's market, and I was like, do you have any like volunteer, internship, working, whatever opportunities available? And this really amazing couple who run Yellow Springs Farm in Pennsylvania, which is a small-scale goat dairy, took me in, and I think despite my naivety, they saw my passion, and they opened me with welcome arms and became some of the most important mentors, not only in farming, but in my life. And so I kind of got my foot in with working with livestock by managing dairy goats in Pennsylvania.
So after college, I moved to Vermont for a few months, and that was kind of like my first exposure to agriculture. And I got to visit a lot of farms and kind of work on a farm at a really small capacity. But it was my plan to move out to Aspen for the winter. And so even though I was really enjoying living in northern rural Vermont, I wanted to ski. So I came out here. And then after a winter of working in a kitchen, I was like, no, I was like much happier working outside and like being on farms. And so that's what led me to come visit Rock Bottom Ranch. But I was really nervous and scared because this was still like less than 6 months after graduating college, to commit to a job in agriculture. And so I started working here just 2 days a week, and it felt this like really comfortable, I don't know, job with farming that like I wasn't like, I don't know, declaring that I was gonna become a farmer. I was just gonna like try it out. And so, yeah, Rock Bottom Ranch, it seemed like a great place to kind of delve deeper into my lingering interests with agriculture.
Do you think that farming is a viable career?
Oh, I hope so. I think at this point, like my eggs are all in this one basket of farming. Like that's my whole resume. But I think there's some challenges of figuring out like how you make it both kind of in personal energy wise, time wise, and financially sustainable to kind of keep doing it. I see a path like through kind of the rest of my 20s and into my 30s in farming, but I am nervous that as you kind of grow the ceiling, I've seen peers and other farmers I farmed with kind of hit the ceiling of whether it is the responsibility that they can get in their jobs or the pay kind of move them to consider something else and kind of reroute their life a little bit. So we'll see.
You just mentioned the responsibility that they can find, and we've talked a number of times about this kind of plateau of it's fairly easy to find introductory jobs, and then there's this kind of middle management level that doesn't really exist very much. Could you touch on that a little bit? I know you've spoken about it a ton in the past, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a loaded question. I think we need farming to be a viable career, whether it is or not now. I think we need to work on that because we need well-fed communities. We need strong local food systems and things like that, but we have a ton of work to do. And I mean, you kind of briefly mentioned in the introduction, but we are incredibly privileged, all of us sitting here as white people especially. And so, yeah, it's hard. I mean, we live in a system where land ownership models are really complex and probably need to shift a lot to make farming a viable career for people who aren't inheriting land, aren't multi-generational farmers. And there's a spot for that in these systems as well. But we need to open this up. We need to address systemic injustice for sure to make sure that the people entering into farming aren't just people that look like us. It's really tough. I don't know if anybody else can elaborate. I'm not taking me off the spot.
Just kind of like answering your question, I am determined to make it a viable career. I'm not really sure what else I want to do with my life. I have found a lot of passion and fulfillment with agriculture, and so kind of like what Mariah was saying, I'm determined to make it a viable career. There's moments that I am more nervous on the longevity of that, and in 10 years, if I'll financially be at a place where I can have a family and have all the other life goals that aren't just agriculture related. But then, I like to think optimistically that things will keep growing with support and awareness of the importance of regenerative agriculture.
Yeah, and I think like revisiting, I would like to add that I think I'm able to continue my career as a farmer. I mean, I'm first generation and that can be challenging, but I am not necessarily trying to start a family right now in my life. If I was, I don't think career could be a viable career for me financially. And so until we have these like systems in place, it is like this precarious issue that we have.
Is owning a farm the pinnacle or the final answer? Is that something that you aspire to do?
I think a little bit of kind of where that ceiling is and where that kind of lack of opportunity working for other people. There's, obviously fewer jobs at the top or in the, upper middle of like a business. And so I think a lot of people are pushed to own farms and seek out kind of that ownership opportunity as a way to find growth in the career. And I'm like definitely at a point where like if those opportunities present themselves, maybe I'll go for it. But if I can continue farming on someone else's land and find all the benefits that I want, maybe I'll go for that. So I think I probably have a less clear answer than some other people on the stage.
I'm not sure if I have a super clear answer, but a few years ago, someone asked me if I wanted to own my own farm, and I was like, no. I think in this last year, I've reflected and thought more about the realities of having my own farm, and if I was capable and competent, and like, there's obviously greater things about land and housing. But I think as I've farmed longer, I've gained a sense of confidence that I could go off and do something independently. I think there's still a lot of other pieces in the puzzle to put together to make it a reality. So I don't have an exact answer, but it's morphed the longer I've been farming.
Yeah, I would definitely reflect what both Mariah and Alyssa have said, and I've been asked that question so many times, and I feel like farm shamed when every time I'm like, well, no. I mean, my passion more than anything is just land management itself, and kind of like this agroecology that it takes to manage land. I'm not really passionate about like accounting and like business marketing. Like that stuff's cool. It's just like not my forte. And so I think we kind of need to move away from this model with that in mind, that you just like have to be like the farmer who does it all and owns the business. And I'm always interested in exploring more like cooperative models and things like that, and kind of like leapfrogging over this like farming as a viable career option. Like maybe you try farming and you're like, oh, I am not down for this physical and mental labor of doing this day in and day out, but I still want to support this movement. Like we need people in policy and in like in land management and in land acquisition and things like that. Like there's so many, and social justice especially, there's so many other fortes that you can get into that still support agriculture if maybe like the farming and farm business owner might not be your jam.
And we've joked as a team before that the when are you going to start your own farm is kind of the equivalent of when are you going to get married, when are you going to have kids. And so there's this kind of weird pressure to open your own farm, but that, as you pointed out, isn't the only option. So how has farming adjusted your perspectives?
It's adjusted a ton of perspectives. I think one kind of quick thought is that it's shown me like what fulfilling work feels like. And I think it's made it harder to consider a different career or a different job because I am so fulfilled by what I do that I don't think I could settle for like a work grind type of lifestyle. And so that perspective is really powerful and really like, I don't know, great to be aware of. But if I do need a different job one day, I don't know if I'd be happy. So I guess that could be like a double-edged sword one day.
Farming just ruins you for all other kind of work.
And then one thing that we chatted about a few days ago, I think it gives you a ton of perspective on not having control of things. There's so much that, happens that we try to avoid, and we can't control nature.
Yeah, I think one of the words that came to us the other day was humbling. Farming's very humbling.
Yeah, I think there's you can have the best plans in place in the spring, and as soon as you think things are going well, I think the world kind of knocks you on your booty a little bit and reminds you that you're kind of like a co-conspirator in this endeavor with nature, and you're not the one that is driving it. You're just kind of doing the best with what you can. And I think I don't know, my theme for this season is a little bit about understanding limitations, both in a farming career sense and in kind of farming as a metaphor for everything else. So that's the lens I think about some of my personal areas of growth in as well.
Yeah, I think anybody who's worked with me has heard me do the best laid plans of mice and men. Really, whatever you plan out, it's not gonna happen that way. So yeah, definitely the humbling for sure. I think Kathleen saying farming is a metaphor. Absolutely. You guys have heard me go on my spiel about when I first got into farming, it just made me, it was so formative. Agriculture and working within farming is such a microcosm for the greater life around it. The work itself delves so much into birth, life, death, temporal seasonality and cycles. And so I don't know many, certainly other jobs and professions can definitely tap into these things, but for me personally, I've just never been involved with work that had delved me so deeply into that. Humbled.
Yeah, the crew members a few times kind of mentioned emotionally growing and being pushed to limits. And I think all the different things that Jen was just referring to with life and death and things out of your control, I feel you grow emotionally as you I don't know, just have all these curveballs thrown at you that you aren't expecting or totally prepared for.
Yeah, and I think to avoid, I don't know, it might be a little sappy, but I think especially because I got into farming and agriculture really young in kind of my adult life, I very much kind of look at all these threads of my career and how they've kind of shaped my perspective on myself and shaped me into kind of the woman I would like to be. And some of my professional goals going forward are kind of wrapped up in that self-creation. And I also look at the women I get a chance to work with, and
you are that woman you would like to be, Mariah.
To be surrounded by really passionate role models as my peers and kind of see the people that they've become in their careers is definitely a kind of sappier goal of mine.
One thing that moved me when we were speaking the other day was, Mariah, you talked about gaining a depth of knowledge on a small piece of land, and Alyssa, I think similarly, you were talking about watching a piece of land kind of take shape or change because of the stewardship of it.
Yeah, I can definitely touch on that. It's something that gets me really excited. Specifically, being at this property for multiple seasons, I've seen the pastures evolve and change. And in 2016, there was this chunk of pasture out back that way that was just a thistle forest. I mean, not a forest, but swath of land. And there was this naturalist who was leading people through the pasture and was I have to walk through this with these children, it's prickly, they're gonna start crying. And I was just I'm sorry. And that thistle swath is no longer there, and it's because of livestock grazing it and coming back each season, multiple times a season. And it's so cool to be able to see that land just kind of evolve and become healthier and more efficient for the environment, and there's examples of that all over this property, and so that's like probably the most like vivid in my memory. But I think that's kind of one of the addicting parts of farming, is getting to know a piece of land and wanting to work on that land for another season and another year, and seeing how you can continue to steward it and bring it to like the highest optimal level of life and have the greatest impact on the environment.
Yeah, I think there's like an intimacy with a knowledge of like just a small area that is so intriguing and just makes me want to know more and kind of continue to dive in and observe. And I feel kind of the same excitement that I hear some of my other friends or other people talk about, like travel and adventure. I feel these like same excitement of exploration, just kind of focused on this one area and exploring kind of that depth and that temporal scale of understanding the natural world and the system that like literally supports me.
And so, Alyssa, you just mentioned, this kind of leads into what's been a rewarding moment or experience that you've had while in your farming career?
Well, that's like an experience that I'm just like proud to look back on how we have positively transformed and impacted the land. But another example of kind of rewarding experience, I would say lambing season. That's kind of all of farming is like this cycle. So like every season, every year, you get to kind of like do the same things over again, which makes you want to do it again and do it better. And our lambing season was definitely something that I get really excited for every season, to be a better shepherdess and be a better farmer. And I think this last year, I felt like a level of confidence that I hadn't felt in like previous lambing seasons. And I think that kind of growth and recognizing what I had gained from multiple seasons and like multiple failures in some ways, recognizing that was really fulfilling and like really proud to, yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, lambing season. Like, you don't experience birth really that much and like a normal lifestyle. And like, I remember the first time I saw an animal being born. It was the first time I saw anything being born. I was like both just like horrified and mystified
And anxious.
It's amazing. And like, I never have lost that feeling. Like, it's just so, it's incredible. Birthing is crazy. I think what I also value is, like the mentor-mentee relationship that I've encountered several times over in farming now. I feel very, very lucky to say that I've had just some incredible mentors in my career that I've learned so much from. Again, not only in the scope of farming, but in the scope of life. And these are people that I like continuously draw inspiration and wisdom from. And that's just like a really beautiful and like in-depth relationship. And then also being able to take in people that don't know anything about farming, and at this point having enough experience to share things with them and like watch them connect the dots in their own mind and be exposed to things that you just otherwise aren't in other jobs or careers or afternoons. That's just a super, super cool thing. I love learning from people, and I love passing it on. Yeah.
I think like a small moment that happened, I get to experience at least twice a week during the vegetable production season, is just this like realization that people are making a meal with the food we grow. And that's just so satisfying. And like, even when I was working on some larger scale farms and had less direct customer interaction, I would be like packing wholesale bean boxes and kind of imagining like, oh, someone's gonna buy these and someone's gonna take them home and someone's gonna make a meal for people they love. And they're not really gonna necessarily give me, maybe they will give me a thought, maybe they won't, but they'll be I'm giving them something. And I think just the satisfaction of like the meals, and realizing that whether it's the meals on my own table that I'm able to cook from our food, or just thinking about where our food ends up, is really satisfying to have that like tangible, like good at the end of my hard efforts.
So we want to save some time if there's any questions from the audience. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to jot them down. You can pass them up to us. I think it's small enough too. Emily's walking around that we can ask. But while we're doing that and kind of waiting for a second, what's a good day feel like while you're farming?
Well, let's see. I think a good day feels kind of like equal part exhausted and equal part energized. And so having like tangible things crossed off your list really feels great. And there's a lot of farming days that it's like work, but no like specific outcome. So when you've like crossed things off and you are exhausted, but not too exhausted to go on a bike ride or a hike after work, I feel like it's this really great balance of a successful, good day. And being like dirty, covered in dirt.
Yeah, I feel like you need to earn your cold shower at the end of the day. And you know the days that you definitely did and the days that you could have maybe stepped it up. I think a really special thing about working at a place like Rock Bottom Ranch too, and this is not at all the same across agriculture, is that we're a really diversified farm. We do diversified vegetables, we do diversified livestock. And I really appreciate that. Like, I love a good routine, but I like a day where I spend my time working on all sorts of different things, and there's this element of the unexpected and things like that. And so a really good day for me, too, is, like, delving into all sorts of, like, vastly different projects across different animal enterprises or site maintenance or whatever, and feeling like there was a solid flow and great productivity.
Yeah, I love the days that feel like puzzles, where you have your list of everything that has to do, and with vegetable and livestock, there's very time sensitive things in the morning. So it's like, okay, I have before 9 a.m. I need to check off XYZ, and then this needs to be transplanted, and we need to wash this in the wash station, and then there's this meeting where it's like sometimes I'll like wake up early and I'll just lay in bed kind of visualizing what, like the flow of the day and being like, okay, is that a realistic time estimate? Is that not? And the days where I have a puzzle and we pull it off is so satisfying, because that's that balance of like the hard work and the push and the like kind of adrenaline of the stress, but then there's a success at the end. So that immediate gratification of like, okay, yeah, we got this.
Well, we'd like to welcome this group of our crew members to join as well. I think Emily's got a stack of questions to get started on. Do you mind if we grab some of those wipes and pass the microphone down? Yeah. Oh, boy. This is the first one is, can you speak to the farming sisterhood? It's great to see a crew of women. Is this true in farming in general?
Well, I would say like across all of agriculture, definitely not. But speaking on kind of the hiring side of all these great women, the last few years we've definitely had more female applicants than male applicants, and the female applicants have been superior to the male applicants. Yeah, so I guess that's all I can say on like this crew coming together. It was hiring the strongest applicants that we received. And the sisterhood part, it is kind of fun. This is our second year of an all-female crew, and I've been reflecting a lot about it this year, of just like the dynamics and the energy, and it is kind of like a sisterhood. And I think sometimes, it's like older sister, younger sister, and I think the three of us up here have like so much pride for our younger sisters who are sitting down here, and so, yeah, there's definitely among us a sisterhood of, yeah.
Yeah, this is not intentional. Like, send us your best men. This is 2 years that we've had all female crews, which has been amazing. But like, yeah, and I mean, yeah, this is her thing. Yeah, empowering women and being surrounded by empowered women is so great. I've definitely being an ag for 8+ years, and being in other spaces that are not female dominated. The reality, you get talked down to, you get belittled. I go to feed stores and people act like they need to carry like a 50-pound bag of feed for me, which I can absolutely do myself. Like it's very much a problem, and so it does feel like this really like wonderful space, safe space to be supporting each other and teaching each other without kind of that extra veil. But that said, it'd be great to have strong men on the crew too. We don't discriminate. Yeah.
Can farming be viable in the Roaring Fork Valley without a nonprofit? If so, what will it take?
It's a great question. I don't have an exact answer. I think there are examples of for-profit farms making it happen. I think the greater question is like 10 years from now, what our local food system will look like. I think land access and housing are kind of like the biggest barriers, and I think there's a lot of up and coming opportunities with leasing public lands that's making it more viable for farmers to start their own operations, but I think that's just one of the many pieces, and our valley is really unique and has multiple obstacles.
I had a friend ask me recently why we as a country are insistent that agriculture should be a for-profit endeavor, which blew my mind a little bit. But like I think of myself a little bit as a public servant, and so maybe that's the viability of like a for-profit farm is the wrong question to be asking. Even though like I definitely, all of us like on this stage have, we want to be producing good food as efficiently as we can and like selling that food and making money doing so and supporting ourselves doing so. But I think with all the complexity of food systems as a whole, maybe that's, the goal should be making sure everyone has enough to eat and then backtrack from build a system around that instead of forcing farmers to kind of run themselves into the ground to fit in that economic system.
I agree with all those points. I also do think when we have strong local food systems, for-profit farmers will be really successful. And I think we all take ourselves very, very seriously as farmers, but there is this like added layer, I think, of treading lightly when you are a nonprofit farmer and a nonprofit in general, that you are not detracting from your local for-profit farmers and instead being able to kind of like support them, uphold them, do that outreach and that marketing and building that strong local food system and the idea of it on their behalf, and kind of, I don't know, like almost knowing your place in that system a little bit. I think we need to be sensitive. I think we absolutely need to be sensitive.
We have a role, and our role is evolving and constantly evolving, and I think it's going to change over the years. With agriculture being about 40% of U.S. carbon footprint, how do you feel what you're doing at Rock Bottom Ranch can contribute to the solution? Jen or Alyssa? Do you guys have any reflections of the first year of how we are working towards that carbon solution?
I think for me, one of the ways that I think we were best, or maybe, best role modeling sort of better local food practices and better carbon practices are that we're providing food that isn't traveling huge distances. Like, we are raising cattle, and vegetable production is inherently kind of an extractive process, but we're providing food to our community that's traveling maybe 20 miles, not food that's being shipped across the country. And that feels like a really meaningful way to contribute to sort of more, moving towards a more carbon neutral food system.
Yeah, and kind of echoing that, I feel, most of us feel, that livestock have tremendous power to reverse carbon emissions and help sequester carbon. I don't think this little property is going to cause the rest of the world to like we're not going to affect everyone. But I think the way we are farming here can be done everywhere to some degree, and I think in that way what we're doing is positively benefiting the environment, and I think kind of we're trying to demonstrate replicable systems, and so as people come to Rock Bottom Ranch, visit Rock Bottom Ranch, work at Rock Bottom Ranch, and take those practices elsewhere, and continue to raise livestock in regenerative matters, I think we can take a stab at the state of our climate, and like I think livestock have a huge, tremendous opportunity to really be the star of the show.
I think livestock is a very interesting part of our ranch. I came into this experience as a full-on vegan for a full year, with this very much mindset that animals equals bad for the environment, and I've learned a much more nuanced view of how we raise animals, how it can help grow healthy pastures, and it's been a really incredible part of my experience. And also, even now, I still don't eat meat just for my own personal preference, but I think it's that we do a great job of educating other people and people who come into this valley, maybe with the similar mindset that I previously had, can really learn new ways how we can help raise healthy pasture and actually help the environment.
I think an especially cool thing about ACEs in this property too that I would love to see kind of across the board is we have like 113 acres on this site. We use maybe like 40 to 42 acres of that for agricultural production, whereas like 70 plus acres of that is in wildlife conservation. And I'm really interested in the ways that like we can use agriculture to also support our wildlands and to support the rewilding of lands. Like, I don't think a healthy nation is just like, let's take out all of this and just throw a bunch of cows and rotationally graze. Like, we need to kind of take a more nuanced approach and a balanced approach and appreciate all ecosystems for what they are. And I mean, it is a challenge. Like, we've dealt with predation issues and things like that, but I think we approach it with this kind of holistic mindset and this mindset of cooperation and valuing other systems beyond just like, what do we enjoy eating?
I'm particularly interested in this, is how many of you have thought about consulting and teaching other farmers about regenerative ag?
Oh, sorry. I went to a college with a really incredible business school, and so a lot of my peers graduated with business degrees and got consulting jobs. And the day that one of my acquaintances from college called me up to ask me about, she was consulting on plastic packaging for a large farm in California, and I told her what I knew, and I was like, dang it, that $50,000 she's being paid on that account should be mine. I was like, oh, I went in the wrong way. But I think there's a fulfillment in kind of being involved in the production side of things for me right now, and I think every day I'm like, oh, I know nothing. And so there's still kind of this desire to seek and learn and kind of consult in the best, if I do, if anyone wants this knowledge, kind of know as much as I can now before, because I don't know if 23-year-olds should be consulting.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, I think about consulting and I'm like, I need more experience to do that. Like, I almost feel like you shouldn't do that if you're like under 10 years or something like that. But then I'm also like, I actually have a crazy amount of experience though too, and I have a crazy amount of know-how, and this is just like a product of being raised a woman in the United States that I'm like devaluing what I know. So I guess, yeah, I'm on the fence.
Does anyone see a future in helping share and spread this knowledge of, is it with, your peers and farmers? Do you think you could pursue that even further of like sharing knowledge, sharing farming knowledge?
I think definitely in that regard. I mean, our 3 crew members, I feel like it's been so, I don't know, exciting to share knowledge with them. And so I would definitely say I enjoy working with others and teaching them and showing them different approaches and aspects. I've never thought about like switching to consulting. Kind of Mariah was like, she's really into the production side of the work right now, and I also have a lot of fulfillment from the physical production. And so I think definitely training and teaching, and maybe one day consulting alongside with that.
Yeah, I think on the one-on-one, you can't get me to be quiet. I feel like I'm always going on my like rants and raves. And so, yeah, I love the one-on-one connection. Like, I'm honestly like very nervous up here on stage, but like if anybody's got follow-up questions after, like I'll talk your ear off on a one-on-one setting.
This is a kind of multi-part question. There's, can small farms thrive and survive? With more companies focused on environment, social, and governance factors, they're trying to support more female and minority-owned farms. How can you interact with them, and how can you work with them to continue to grow regenerative agriculture? And we've spoken a little bit about this, but
The first question.
can small farms thrive and survive?
Yeah, I think that's a super cool question because I think small farms have kind of a leg up in many ways in their ability to survive and thrive. I think as a small farm, you often go to like a direct-to-consumer sales model versus a large-scale commodity farm that's like selling to the government. And so I think direct to consumer, you are taking out the middleman, and so you can price your food accordingly. And I think that definitely is a positive for like a financial success of an operation. And I think small farms in many ways can be more resilient when there are pandemics or there are other, other societal changes. When I-70 is closed down. And so I think, I think small farms are actually, I think it's exciting, their ability to survive and thrive compared to large-scale industrial agriculture.
I also think small farms can like create a lot of jobs and pay a lot of people to do this work. And so, whereas I think the larger you scale up, that business model is kind of almost always synonymous with scaling back on your payroll. And so I think that is a really exciting thing, and an exciting thing kind of looking around this valley and kind of looking around the country at small farms and just the number of jobs, the good jobs that are being created in this industry.
Yeah, I think I continue to be interested in like cooperative and collaborative models of business, and maybe unlike ones that we've seen before where we can kind of have all these more smaller owned and worked farms, but like create this bigger impact. And that said, like 100% on both of those, I still do think we need farms of all sizes at this point. And I think if I like kind of try to rationalize it, like I think it's cool even that these even larger scale farms adopting kind of more regenerative and sustainable practices, like that makes that much more of an impact on such a larger level. But I would still like to see kind of maybe ownership and management models shift regardless, support more people.
You guys have gone to conferences, and we've seen a little bit of a shift, a lot of a shift, especially this year, of trying to support female and minority-owned farms. Are you seeing some examples of that in your social media feeds or projects, or are there ways that we can interact and help support? And do you want to touch on that, or share what you're seeing?
I would definitely say in the last year, there's been greater awareness and action, which I think has been like long overdue by our society. But it's been cool to see larger organizations take steps towards making agriculture a bit more approachable to a diversified group. I think this last fall, Jen and I went to a conference in New Mexico, and it was predominantly like older white men, but there was definitely some presentations about indigenous agriculture and scholarships for farmers who had been farming for like less than like 5 years. And so I think there's some small steps there to be taken.
Yeah, and I think I've seen so many farms and like down payments on farm properties be like very successfully crowdfunded by people who have traditionally are like part of groups that are traditionally kind of locked out of banking systems, whether it be because of generational wealth or kind of racist banking practices. And that has been really inspiring. I went way over my budget this summer, just being so excited about the farms that are being created. There's still like an infinite amount of work to be done to kind of support farmers that maybe don't have the same opportunities or have not felt the same kind of, I felt very supported my whole career by my ag mentors and felt very comfortable in the jobs that I have had and allowed a lot of growth in that, and that's not always the case. And so I think there's a lot of good steps that are starting to be taken, and hopefully more people start paying attention.
Yeah, and I mean, this might be kind of a self-selecting group, but National Young Farmers Coalition, I think in recent years, it's been a tiny bit now, but did kind of like their own census and reporting back to that, like more than previous generations or kind of the national averages. We have more and more younger farmers being like under 10 years, beginning farmer, or within a certain age group, identifying as people of color, as LGBTQIA. And so that just is the reality. We need to make space for that. We need to support businesses that are run by these individuals in management positions as well as crew members. Like that's the future.
And kind of touching like how ACEs can be involved with that. We are working on like documenting and like digitalizing our practices to share in a more widespread way. And so I think when those resources are available, they'll be accessible to anyone, anywhere. And so I think that's kind of a way that we can have an impact outside of our small community here.
I believe we all agree that we have a lot of work to do and to help progress that, and we're always brainstorming and thinking of what our role is and how we can pursue that. So I think it's on the front of our minds, and we don't want to forget about that. Kind of last question for the evening, what rewarding experience would you like to further develop or pursue? Yeah, please.
Question again, Jason?
Well, are there any rewarding experiences that you'd like to further develop or pursue?
I have hugely enjoyed and hope to continue just developing new skills. I love being able to drive a tractor or like being comfortable using different kinds of equipment that I had never been exposed to previously. And having these kinds of experiences that at first are kind of uncomfortable or kind of scary or anxiety-inducing, but seeing how over the course of the season we've all become really comfortable and competent in these kinds of really like diversified skills. So it's definitely something I hope to continue pursuing and continuing to face those challenges.
I completely agree, Kath. Another rewarding part of farming is just seeing how everything changes in each season of time from day to day, month to month. And sometimes it's very hard to accept it, and it's kind of upsetting. Today, we're ripping out all of the tomatoes in our hoop houses, and we all love our summer tomatoes, and we're kind of reckoning with the change of time. And in one of the houses, we pulled our tomatoes before they even died so we could plant the seeds for carrots for winter. So I'd love to continue just accepting change and, I said this earlier, like, fall's coming, winter's coming, it's ending, but the excitement of spring means that we can do it all over again, so.
Delving slightly more specifically here, one skill that I am particularly interested in continuing, I work on the livestock crew here, so I predominantly work with the animals, and in my past experiences as a wildlife biologist, it was very clinical, removed from the subject, and just a totally different experience. And so something I want to develop further is the ability to move animals. It has been incredible to work with our sheep and our cattle and their fascinating skills studying movement patterns and how you can position your body to work with the animals and keep them comfortable to move in a certain direction. And we do this all the time on a regular basis with our livestock, and it has been an incredible joy and an incredible fascination, even when it goes horribly awry and there's cattle sprinting across the property. So that is one thing I would love to pursue further.
I think also in response to Dara's point, farming often feels like learning to let go, both to the point mentioned earlier about learning to accept change and face it, but also sort of accepting, saying goodbye, that each crop or each moment or each period of the season is always kind of fleeting and continually evolving. So just learning to like really appreciate each moment that we're in, even when it's something that maybe feels miserable or like things have gone awry, but appreciating living through each of those moments and knowing that it's sort of continually changing as the season progresses.
Man, it's been so rewarding this season to kind of be able to shift my perspective of agriculture and of this job through the eyes of a first-year farmer. And I think that, like, just getting to kind of introduce people to this job, like, management is not necessarily like a stated career goal of mine, or like fulfillment, but in the reality of it, it's been super rewarding to just kind of get to learn alongside some really wonderful people.
Yeah, similar to Maddie, I think my goals are more on the technical side. I want to learn how to move animals with dogs. Jason, let me have a dog. No, I think that would be super cool. I've talked for a while and too long about pursuing more perennial integration into livestock systems, so pursuing silvopasture and kind of grazing in these alleyways of like savanna type spacing between trees. It's been ranked as like one of the highest carbon sequestering practices in agriculture, which just inspires me, and I love trees. And I also have found through farming that I have a really unexpected love of mechanics, which again, I don't think anybody who knew me in my life would ever guess, but I would really, really like to enroll in a diesel mechanic program.
Gosh, great answers, everyone. I really want to learn how to ride a horse on like the technical side of things. I don't think horses are necessarily needed on this property. I think moving animals by foot is also really cool and really empowering. But if I was ever like riding in the mountains, moving cattle, that'd be a really cool skill. But yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Well, I just want to thank everybody here and deeply, deeply, honestly appreciate this 2020 year has been so fulfilling and so rewarding to me, being able to watch you guys grow and learn and experience. I feel very humbled to work alongside you, so thank you.
Thank you.
In 2021, ACES is taking some very exciting steps to train more farmers, both on this site and online. If you'd like to join us or support this program, please look at the email link below. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate everyone's time and hope that you'll come and explore the farm a little more with us, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.